There's something haunting about watching someone you love slowly fade, not physically, but mentally. You look into their eyes, and they're still there, but a part of them, memories, names, the thread of a conversation, is slipping away. It doesn't happen overnight. It starts so softly, so quietly, that even they don't realize it's begun. But here's the painful truth. Most people don't recognize the beginning of cognitive decline, not in others, and certainly not in themselves. It's often mistaken for stress, for distraction, for just getting older. And that's where the danger lies. You see, early dementia doesn't shout. It whispers. It begins with things we all brush off. You misplace your keys more often, but laugh it off. You forget the name of your neighbor's son, even though you've met him multiple times. You pause mid-sentence, trying to remember a word that's suddenly out of reach. You rewatch a movie and halfway through realize you've seen it before. Individually, these moments feel harmless, but together, they paint a different picture. A picture most people ignore until it's already framed and hanging on the wall. Why? Because we're conditioned to believe forgetfulness is just a part of aging. Because admitting it might mean something more is frightening. Because denial is easier than facing the unknown. But ignoring the early signs won't make them go away. In fact, it's the very thing that allows the decline to deepen. Here's what most people miss. The first signs of dementia are not about forgetting everything. They're about forgetting something, repeatedly, subtly, and silently. And when caught early, this process can be slowed, sometimes significantly. But that requires courage, the courage to pay attention, to stop brushing it off, to notice the patterns, and most of all, to act before those whispers become roars. This video is your invitation, not to fear aging, but to understand it better, to notice what matters, to tune in to the changes that might be telling you something important. Because the worst thing isn't memory loss, it's missing the moment you could have done something about it. In the next part, we'll talk about why denial is so common and how it quietly robs people of precious time they didn't know they were losing. It's not always forgetfulness that allows dementia to creep in. Sometimes it's pride, sometimes it's fear, and far too often, it's silence. After the early signs show up, those tiny memory slips, the moments of mental fog, something else usually follows: denial. Not loud or dramatic, just quiet dismissals. I'm fine, I'm just tired. Everyone forgets things at my age. And they're not wrong. Everyone does forget things sometimes. But denial isn't just about brushing off a moment. It's about refusing to notice a pattern. And here's the heartbreaking part. That refusal doesn't protect you. It delays help. It prevents early intervention. It silently allows the condition to grow unchecked like a crack in a foundation, one that deepens with each passing day. You see, we live in a culture that values independence. We're taught to be strong, to not make a fuss, to carry on even when things feel off. So when your mind begins to betray you, just slightly, you don't want to admit it. You don't want to burden your children. You don't want to be pitied. You don't want to lose control. So you hide it. You laugh at your own forgetfulness before anyone else can. You avoid conversations that require you to think quickly. You withdraw from social gatherings, not because you want to, but because it's easier than being confused in front of others. And slowly, your world begins to shrink. Not because dementia has taken over, but because denial has built a cage around you. What many don't realize is that this phase, this in-between, can last for years. And during that time, the brain still has plasticity. It can be supported, strengthened, slowed from decline, but only if you acknowledge what's happening. That's the tragedy. So many people miss the moment when things could have changed because they were too busy pretending everything was okay. You don't have to be one of them. It's not weakness to admit you're struggling. It's wisdom. And it may be the most powerful decision you make in this chapter of life. In the next part, we'll explore something most people never consider: how your emotions, especially loneliness, sadness, and chronic stress, may be quietly damaging your memory more than you think. Most people think memory loss is only about neurons or aging brain cells. But what if I told you the real damage often starts somewhere else? Not in the brain, but in the heart. There's a truth most doctors don't talk about often enough. Your emotions can erode your memory, slowly, silently, and devastatingly. Let's start with something we all feel but rarely admit. Loneliness. After retirement, after losing a partner, after children move away, that empty quiet of daily life begins to settle in. And little by little, the brain stops being stimulated. Conversations fade, curiosity fades, and so does memory. You may still be healthy, still active, but if your world has grown smaller, your mind may be shrinking too, and you might not even realize it. Please don't look away just yet. What I'm about to share next is something that shocks most people, and might just explain why you felt mentally drained lately. Now let's talk about chronic stress. Not the kind that comes and goes, but the daily, invisible kind. Worries about money, about your health, about being a burden. You carry it quietly, you smile through it, but your brain knows. It responds by flooding your body with stress hormones like cortisol, which over time shrink the hippocampus, the part of your brain responsible for memory. In short, the more pressure you carry alone, the more your memory may slip away. And then, there's grief. The kind that doesn't scream. The kind that just sits inside your chest like a stone. Maybe you've lost someone. Maybe you've lost a part of yourself. But unprocessed grief is one of the heaviest weights on the mind. Many people don't forget because their brain is aging. They forget because their soul is tired. And here's where I need you to stay with me. Because the next part may feel uncomfortable, but it's the truth most people miss. Have you stopped talking to others as much as you used to? Have you pushed down pain because you didn't want to burden your family? Have you accepted sadness as your new normal? If you quietly answered yes to any of those, you're not alone. But you do have a choice, because memory loss isn't always a medical condition. It can be a message that your inner world needs care, that your mind is asking to be seen, that your heart is longing to be heard. Coming up next, we'll dive into the daily habits you don't even think about, the small routines that may be making things worse, even though they feel completely harmless. You'll want to stay for this. Some of them might surprise you. It's not always the big things that wear down your memory. Sometimes it's the tiniest habits, done every day without a second thought. Let's begin with one of the most overlooked dangers: lack of movement. Many people assume exercise is just for the body, but movement is fuel for the brain. When you stop walking regularly, when you spend most of your day sitting, your brain receives less oxygen, less stimulation, and less neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to adapt, repair, and stay sharp. And no, you don't need to run marathons. Just a daily walk, light stretching, or gentle Tai Chi can do more than any pill. But here's where most people get it wrong. They wait until they feel ready to start. They underestimate how much damage inactivity has already done. And by the time memory loss appears, the habit has been baked in. Pause with me here for a second. If you've found yourself moving less lately, if you've told yourself, "I'll start next week," this is your gentle wake-up call. Now let's talk about late, heavy dinners. You might enjoy eating in the evening when things feel calm, but heavy meals, especially late at night, can disrupt sleep cycles, increase nighttime blood sugar spikes, and make your brain work harder to digest than to repair. Your brain cleanses itself during deep sleep, and if that sleep is shallow or broken, the toxins linked to Alzheimer's, like beta amyloid, don't get flushed out. So yes, something as simple as what and when you eat can affect your memory long term. Next, lack of social interaction. This one is especially dangerous because it feels harmless. Maybe you live alone. Maybe your friends have moved or passed on. Maybe you just don't feel like talking as much. But silence can become a trap. When you stop speaking regularly, stop listening, stop exchanging stories, your language skills dull. Your memory isn't challenged. Your thoughts start circling inward. And before you know it, you've stopped engaging with the world. Even short conversations, even virtual ones, help. They create sparks in the brain that no crossword puzzle can replace. And finally, poor sleep hygiene. You may think you sleep enough, but is it deep, healing sleep? Do you wake up refreshed? Or do you toss and turn, doze lightly, wake at 3 a.m. and stare at the ceiling? Many older adults develop fragmented sleep patterns and never connect the dots between poor rest and poor memory. Brain science is clear. Without quality sleep, the brain cannot consolidate memory. It simply can't. Now, before you scroll away, this is where many people drop off. But if you've made it this far, it means something in this message is speaking to you. So stay with me, because in the next part, we'll explore something few people ever hear. Is it possible to reverse memory decline? And if so, what actually works? One of the most painful beliefs people carry is that memory loss is a one-way street, that once it begins, there's no turning back. But the truth, though more nuanced, is also more hopeful. While dementia itself remains a progressive condition, the early stages of cognitive decline are not always irreversible. In fact, the brain, even in later years, retains an incredible ability called neuroplasticity, the power to reorganize, to adapt, and to grow new neural connections. That means for many people, the fading of memory isn't the end, but a signal that something needs care, attention, and change. Scientific studies in recent years have revealed that lifestyle interventions can have measurable effects on brain health. Regular physical movement, even simple walking, improves blood flow to the brain and stimulates growth factors that encourage neuronal repair. Balanced nutrition, especially diets rich in leafy greens, berries, omega-3 fats, and low in sugar, has also been linked to better cognitive performance. But it's not just the body that matters. Mental stimulation plays a critical role. Not necessarily puzzles or games, though they help, but learning something new. A language, a skill, an art form. The process of learning engages multiple areas of the brain, strengthening connections and slowing decline. Equally vital is emotional health. People often overlook how much unresolved grief, chronic loneliness, and quiet anxiety affect the mind's capacity to remember and focus. When the heart carries too much weight, the brain loses its freedom to process clearly. That's why practices like mindfulness, therapy, meaningful conversation, and even spiritual reflection can ease cognitive strain. For some, the restoration may be subtle, less forgetfulness, clearer thoughts. For others, it may simply be about preserving what remains for as long as possible. And sometimes, the biggest change is not external but internal. The shift from helplessness to hope, from passive decline to gentle, mindful action. You may not erase the past or undo the years, but you can choose what you give your brain today. You can nourish it, challenge it, comfort it, and in doing so, invite it to remain with you a little longer. Because memory is more than just recall. It's identity, it's story, it's the bridge between who you were and who you still are. When memory begins to fade, what people grieve most isn't always the facts they forget, but the moments they missed long before forgetting even began. They don't just mourn the names they can't recall. They mourn the times they stayed silent instead of saying, "I love you." The conversations they postponed, the stories they never wrote down, the laughter they brushed aside, thinking there would always be another chance. In the quiet of memory loss, something strange happens. People begin to remember not events, but regrets. They remember how often they dismissed small signs, how they felt something shifting inside but told no one, how they sensed the beginning of change and chose distraction instead of reflection. And by the time they realize it mattered, the window for healing has already begun to close. Regret in old age is rarely about ambition or success. It's about relationships, about presence, about the days that passed unnoticed because the mind was too busy, too burdened, or too afraid. Many who face the early stages of cognitive decline speak of one common feeling: I thought I had more time. more time to connect, to slow down, to ask questions, to say what mattered. But memory doesn't send a warning before it begins to dim. It simply starts letting go. That's why the greatest loss isn't the forgetting itself, but the life left unlived in the space before forgetting. And yet, even in this realization, there is something gentle, because awareness brings clarity, and clarity brings choice. You may not change the past, you may not restore every fading name or place, but you still have today. You still have this moment. And in this moment, you can choose to be more present, to say the words that have waited in your heart, to notice what you once rushed past. Some people write letters they never sent. Others begin recording their memories in voice notes or journals. Some make simple calls just to say, "I remember you. I care." And perhaps in doing so, they recover something deeper than memory. They recover meaning. Because even if the mind forgets, the soul remembers what truly mattered. If you're still here, listening, breathing quietly through these words, then something inside you knows. This message was meant for you, not to frighten you, not to burden you with worry, but to offer a kind, honest reflection before life moves too fast for you to catch it. We speak so often about preparing for retirement, saving money, planning our health care, but we rarely prepare for something more sacred, the preservation of our mind, our memories, our essence. The truth is, dementia does not come for everyone, but time does, and time, if left unnoticed, can rob us just the same. So what can you do now? You can pay attention, not in fear, but in compassion. You can listen to the subtle changes. You can create new rituals for your brain, your body, and your heart. Eat to nourish, not just to fill. Move, not to exhaust, but to awaken. Speak, not to impress, but to connect. Rest, not as escape, but as restoration. And love, not as obligation, but as the deepest memory your soul will ever hold. If there's someone you've been meaning to call them. If there's a story you've been meaning to tell, start today. If you've been carrying grief in silence, give it a voice. Because even if you forget many things in this life, what remains is how you made others feel, and how you allowed yourself to feel in return. You are not just a mind that remembers. You are a presence that matters. And as long as you're here, you have the power to shape the story your memory will tell. Not in perfect clarity, but in truth, in warmth, in meaning. So take a breath. Let this not be the end of the conversation, but the beginning of a deeper awareness. Because the most important memory is the one you are creating right now. If this video touched something inside you, a memory, a moment, a quiet truth you've been carrying, then don't let it end here. Take a small step today. Maybe it's reaching out to someone. Maybe it's going for a walk, reading a poem, or sitting in silence to reflect. Whatever it is, let it be gentle, real, and yours. And if you found comfort, clarity, or hope in this message, consider subscribing to this channel. Here, we speak softly but honestly about aging, healing, and living with intention. You're not walking this path alone. We'll be here each step of the way, reminding you of what still matters, even when memory begins to fade. Because your story isn't over. Not yet. Not even close.